Hi, I'm Brandon from Fluix, and in our last video we talked about the importance of thinking in terms of end-to-end processes when you're digitizing your business. If you look in the comments of this video, you'll find a link to that video. In this video, we're going to talk about how to structure your forms and your documents so that you have your end users in mind for efficiency, and from an effectiveness standpoint, you're able to get the data that you need from those forms when they're processed within Fluix. We've got 10 specific guidelines for you. Now, the premise here is that we're talking about PDF forms, and we realize no one dubbed you the senior form builder in your company. We do the best we can. We've actually got a built-in PDF form builder within Fluix to help with that, and a professional service team if you need to build more advanced functionality into your PDF forms. But if you're designed or you're determined to go about it on your own, these are the 10 guidelines for you. And one last note, Adobe Acrobat is an important element of this process. While we're going to talk about how to design those forms without that software, what that software allows you to do is add magical superpowers to your forms for just 12 or 15 bucks a month for a license for that software. All right, so let's dig into tip number 1. Use Google Docs or Microsoft Word to design your form first of all. You're already familiar with them. They're perfectly adequate for building simple forms, and there's no real learning curve at all. And you avoid over-designing your forms with unnecessary elements that really only distract your form users. Tip number 2, if you're using Google Docs or Word, use their tables feature to build the actual form inputs themselves. Simply go to Insert, Table, and then however large or wide your document needs to be, your form needs to be, use that. In this case, you can see I've got the placeholder for the field, the label for the field on the left, and the actual form input field on the right. The reason you do this is when you move to Adobe Acrobat to build more advanced features into your forms, you've got a great head start because Adobe Acrobat will actually recognize those table cells as form fields, and they'll even name them based on whatever data you had in the cell to the left. So it's a great way to move quickly from form design to actually finishing up the film itself. So another important tip here, tip number 3, is designing your forms visually with your users in mind. You go back to my Google Doc form and you can see I've got section heads that break up the data into specific sections. I think we can all agree that this form looks much better if you're a user that needs to fill it out than this form right here, which has got a headline and then just a bunch of random fields, some with blanks, some with tiny boxes. There's no structure to it. There's no visual layout that makes it easy for a user to know how information is grouped. Users don't have to guess what you're thinking, and again, once you pull it back into Adobe Acrobat, it's much easier for Acrobat to do something with that. All right, tip number 4, let's talk about Adobe Acrobat. When you pull your document into Adobe Acrobat, at first it will simply apply those fields as text fields, this option up here at the top. But you're going to want to take the available options in Adobe Acrobat and apply those. Things like checkboxes, radio buttons, list box, drop downs, and if you need them, buttons as well. You can take a form that looks like this with just all text fields, the way Adobe Acrobat imported it, and turn it into a document like this, where you've got not only text fields, but you've got drop-down fields, checkbox fields, radio button fields. If I go into preview mode, you can see how these work and how they look. Yes, no's, none selected to monthly, and use that kind of functionality, and it requires very little from your user to fill it out. I like to picture my users pulling up my form like on a tablet. Maybe they're outdoors, maybe the weather is bad, maybe they're in a hurry. You want to make it as easy for them to capture data, and it improves your data accuracy later on if you want to extract that data. Instead of hand-entered freeform data that will come in text fields, you've got accurate data because they've only chosen from select options that are pre-configured. Tip number 5, use field formatting to automatically convert information added into a specific format that will keep things consistent when the data is extracted later. So for example, if you look at how I've got this document set up, this price field is set up as a number field with 2 decimal places, with a currency symbol. the currency field or the quantity field is set up with 0 decimal places and no currency symbol. Which leads me to tip number 6. You can also use the calculation functionality in Adobe Acrobat to reduce human error. In this case, I've got the total field not only set up from a formatting standpoint, 2 decimal places, currency symbol, but it will automatically calculate the price times the quantity. Tip number 7, use required fields on a limited basis, but do use them. And indicate on a form that they're required so users don't get frustrated when submitting them and getting an alert after the fact. In Adobe Acrobat, you can see that these fields are required because they're highlighted in red. If I were to double click on one, you can see in the general that the required box is checked right here. But I've gone one step further in this case. When a viewer sees this document in Fluix or whatever app they pull up this document on their computer, I've also got an indicator on the left-hand side, much like you see on web forms, that that field is required. Tip number 8. Now you might have noticed my nice little Bob Jones listed here. Don't make users fill in the same information twice. You can have 2 fields in one document with the same name in Adobe Acrobat. When users fill it in the first time, it'll automatically fill it in a second time as well. So in this case, if you preview this form and somebody's already entered Bob Jones, it'll be listed where the other name field is on the document further down below. Not a big deal if you only need it one more time in the document, but if you're talking about a 25-page contract where a customer or a prospective customer is going to have to fill in their name multiple times, or your field salesperson is going to have to fill in their name several times, better for them to be able to do it one time up front, and all of those 25 pages that need that information will have it automatically populated. All right, and tip number 9, if you think you'll ever need photos from your mobile document users, give them a field that includes the image capabilities. When I'm in edit mode on this, you can see the field type I've chosen is an image field here in Adobe Acrobat. When they tap on this field on a mobile device, it'll let them upload an image from their photo library, or they can take a picture right then. Fluix totally supports this. Also in Fluix, you can capture all the geodata from that image as well, longitude, latitude, time, and date as well. And finally, tip number 10, before you finish your form, make sure the tab order is correct down here in the bottom left-hand corner. When somebody works their way through a document, normally Adobe Acrobat will understand that the order in which form fields visually appear is the order the tab will appear as well when somebody works their way through the document, fills in a form, and hits the tab button to go to the next field. But if you've changed that form in some way and replaced fields with other field types like the drop-down fields that I talked about or checkbox, that might mess up this tab order, and it's a good idea to fix that tab order, or at least give it one visual check before you call that form finished. All right, that's 10 tips, but I've got a bonus tip for you. Fluix supports many JavaScript functions that can be added at the document level or the field level. And while this can get pretty advanced and more than we can definitely cover in this overview, you can add a lot of functionality to a PDF form, like requiring one field only if another field has got field information added ahead of time, hiding fields so they only appear if a checkbox has been selected, for example, or filling in a field and making it read-only after the fact when you've submitted it. There's so many amazing things that you can do with this, and you can talk with our professional services team about adding custom functionality to your PDFs to be supported within Fluix. All right, that's it for this video. Give Fluix a try by visiting fluix.io and get started with your own trial account. Reach out to us if you need help with adding turbocharged superpowers to your magical PDF forms just the way that you want them. But get started and transform your business end to end with Fluix.